Okay, everyone, thank you for coming to the presentation. What a beautiful Carolina day, right? Blue skies and it's fall. It is beautiful temperatures. For those of you, I love summer during summer, but this is great. But welcome to our presentation. Today I'm talking about the future Connect Carolina look and feel changes. I'm Sharon Boquin with Enterprise Applications. I'm the manager of the portal team. As you log into Connect Carolina, the entry point. For those of you that just came in, there's a few chairs, if you'd like, up front. Feel free to come on up. But the rock stars of my team, let me just introduce Hong and Xiaoping. I'm a manager. I am nothing without my team. They're the rock stars. So thank you, guys. So the agenda, what we're covering today. Starting off, we're going to give a little bit of background. You all are familiar with the current portal, but we're going to just talk about what some of the different sections are today. Also, how many of you have seen or heard about the faculty portal? Good. Okay. Well, have you actually seen it? Okay. Well, we're going to look at that today because that is actually we've implemented a lot of the new look and feel, so we want you to be comfortable with what is already rolled out. We're going to also break down some of the differences between the current look and feel and the future, which we're going to cover announcements, navigation, favorites, recently used, breadcrumbs, and work centers. A lot of the core of what you do today across all applications, HR, finance, and campus solutions, all of those items. So this is what Connect Carolina looks like today when you log in. We've got a few, and you're very familiar with the functionality, what everything is, but just kind of take a step back. Over on the left-hand side, we have, and we commonly call that My Links. Those are basically the folders. All of those are, you can see, were collapsed. Those aren't expanded, but they contain links underneath them for self-service, the different applications, student administration, HR, finance, and some others. We all see the exact same folders. We all do in this room. What we don't see is the same content underneath that because that's governed by our security. We're going to talk a little bit about that and how that looks, what that looks like and the example we're going to use initially is for the faculty portal. Announcements. Every one of us see that every day. And notice we've got a few pieces to this. At the top, we've got the green buttons. They're green on this day, showing that Connect Carolina and InfoPort, everything is all good. They're green. And a lot of information down below. Notice over to the far right, the scroll bar. That gives you an idea of how much more is behind those announcements. So to truly see everything on that, you have to scroll down. And then my work list. Right now, for the majority of us, we have the sorry guys, just double checking to make sure. See, every tech support has to come back and say, okay, Sharon, did you do what you need to do? So he was just making sure I was on target. It's good to have people make sure that you're running, everything's good. So the work list, right now, what we have on the portal is HR and finance. So whether it's an approval or a notification, that's how people see exactly what they need. And you can see I have none, but I still show the box. So kind of a little bit of background on the faculty portal. And I'm glad to hear that several of you have already heard about this. I hope it was good things, but I'd love to know your feedback or hear what kind of things you've heard, good or bad. This is what it looks like. At a glance, you can tell it looks a lot different than what we're used to today in our portal. Some of the things there were meetings, and there is a presentation this afternoon that goes into a deeper dive of this. Scott Jackson is presenting. So if you're available at that time, I think it's mid-afternoon, if you're available, that you can get into a lot more depth of what was done. But basically meeting with multiple faculty groups across campus, finding out what kind of things would help. Now, many of us, if you get asked the question of, well, what do you need? I don't know. But then when you pose the question of, okay, what are your pain points? What causes you some of the biggest angst in your job? What obstacles are in your way? And so those are the things that we heard feedback from faculty. Some of the things we've got, notice in the middle, and we'll show this a little more in depth, we're actually showing data. So as soon as they log in, instead of just links, instead of just announcements that is common across, we're showing specific raw data that is unique to that person that logged in. The section at the top of finance is focused to research. Faculty typically is in two directions, either research or teaching. The middle one is for teaching. We actually show the faculty members' class schedules. They can see multiple terms, upcoming terms, past terms. This was taken in a test environment, so it's old data, but they would be able to see that information. I actually heard from a faculty member last week. We were getting some feedback. And now, mind you, everything is not always 100% positive, but you have to hold on to those positives when you do hear them. But they told me, they commented that as soon as the spring semester was available and they logged in the next time, and they reminded us, I only log in maybe weekly, and some said it's probably every 2 weeks or two to 3 weeks that I log in. I'm not in Connect Carolina every day, all day. Probably most of you are in every day, all day. So we have different jobs. But when they log in, this person logged in, she said she went, there was her spring class. She starts looking at them and she automatically noticed, oh, wait a minute, they have me teaching a class that I'm not supposed to be teaching. She made a phone call and she was ecstatic that within 15 minutes, her office had already handled what they needed to, and that got straightened out because the information was right there front and center. And as she said, if that had to wait until I went out looking for it, it would have been months from now. So those are some of the things, getting feedback of what would help. And that's what the faculty had told us. There's certain things they needed to see front and center. The grants are another one, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Notice on this over on the left-hand side, you see up in the corner, the UNC links. It actually is a, I can't project, I can't point. It's actually up at the top left in that section, UNC links. That's the same thing that we see when we log in. It's just ours is expanded and they can click. So if I go to the next page, it looks like this. They click self-service, it expands that. Or I'm sorry, first off, they click UNC links and it opens. Then they click the folder and they can go into it. But it doesn't take all the real estate up that they needed to actually show data. So these were some things that we had heard. If they need to, they know how to get to it, but it's not taking up all of that real estate. More things on faculty portal. This was the, we talked about work list, and currently for us, we see HR or finance work lists. We heard from faculty, especially on the research side, they have so many different approvals or notifications related to all of these research apps, and they were not getting pulled in. They're getting the same kind of notifications from them that they were getting from Connect Carolina. So we worked with the research group, and we are actually pulling in those work list items. So when the faculty logs in, or even if they get an email that says, hey, you've got a work list item out there you need to go out and approve. They're not, just like we're not always sitting there perched to click on it and go do it right then. So you have to go back and say, now which one, what was it that I needed to do? Well, the ideal is to have one place you can go, pull that up and see everything, all of your work list items in one place. And that's what this will accomplish. So in this case, I've expanded research. I see Ramsey's, IRB. I see breakdown below, proposal for Ramsey's, proposal certification, and 4 PI certifications. I click on the PI certification, and I actually see the detail. It has links. You can tell, I know you can't read very much of what the detail is there, but notice in the second column, those are blue, those are hyperlinks. So they can click on that and it automatically takes them to that application to do the work that they need. So in this particular case, it opens up IRB and they're in that system and working that item. Then they can go right back to Connect Carolina, to the portal, and continue with other work they need to do. Another area was teaching. This particular case, they show this, they show the schedule. Excuse me. They see their class schedule. Notice on each class, there's a, beside of the class number, it's also in blue. So that's a hyperlink. One of the frustrations that the faculty had, a lot of the work they do goes in cycles. They do the exact same thing at the beginning of the semester, the exact same thing in the middle of the semester, and the exact same thing at the end. But when they need to do something, they either have to remember the navigation to go to it, or if they have multiple classes, they go from one to another to look at maybe their class roster, or they want to see the class roster with pictures. So in this case, they can click the hyperlink, and right there gives them options. They want to see class roster, grade roster, roster with pictures. They don't have to navigate anywhere to do that. They can look at one and then go right back to the portal, click the next class and see the same information. So those were things based on feedback we'd heard from them. Other items for research faculty. This, what we're doing here is coming from InfoPort. We're actually getting the information on their grant. We're showing how many of you are familiar with the PI dashboard? This is actually getting that information, but it's showing it right on the Connect Carolina portal, kind of a summary fashion. So the faculty member logs in, they can see quickly what they have that's a positive number, a negative, or that's $0. It gives them that count, and then it gives them the list. In some cases, they may, if they're looking at something like just wanting that direct balance, at a glance, they may see what they need right there. They may not have to go deeper dive, but we give them those options. We allow them to open up, to click more information. We allow them to download, to extract that, and we allow them to click with one click here to go into InfoPort, to go directly to the PI dashboard, which has even more detail there. Announcements. We're wording this, announcements now and in the future. One of the things that, you know, we strive to get communications out, but there's a happy balance there of too much information. And I can speak personally here. There's some things, and I always pick on air gas. I know nothing about air gas, but I pick on it because I know nothing about air gas. But when I log in, when you log in, when the people in your office that have nothing administrative to do with Connect Carolina log in, and their only access and need to the system is view their paycheck, they're going to see if there's any notification about air gas or about any of these other things that they have no clue as to what that means. So do you think if in that announcements there's something related to them, they're going to notice? And this was also something we heard from faculty. You put something there, I'm not going to read that. I might notice if something stands out different at the very top, but odds are I'm not even going to look at it to even catch that. So what we're trying to do here, and this is what it looks like today. I've left off the scroll bar, but notice a couple of things. We've got still have the Connect Carolina and InfoPort, the green buttons showing what kind of status we're in. So in the future, we're pulling that separate. We're showing that as its own separate item. You'd be able to click on it and get more detail of it, or you would just be able to see it right there. And I've extracted these, kind of pulled them out to show you for illustration. But then notice on the left, you've got all of those bolded kind of titles, and then all of the verbiage to the right of those are embedded in it. What we've done is taken the titles and we've put those as hyperlinks. So if you've got a list of those, how that works, we'll just take one as an example. And I've picked on one, we created one as a test. So reviews due. If that's listed in your announcements, and maybe you're a manager or you're in HR and you know that you're having to process that for your department or division, you see reviews due, you've got a couple of options here. You can hover over it. Hover over it will give you a quick pop-up, a little more information. We're trying to keep the description, what you see in the hyperlink, very short, one line preferably. What would be in the mouse over, a little more information. Well, that might be all you need right there, because we could include a date, we could include more information. Or if you click on that hyperlink, we've got much more real estate. It'll do a full pop-up on the page and you can read all of that detail. There may be another embedded link to take you elsewhere. There may be other things, but we've got as much real estate for each one of these as we need. But knowing that you may not need to see that every time, it's up to you as to click on or hover over to get the more detail. And it keeps those list of announcements kind of short, sleek, and much more likely that you're going to notice when something changes. So that's something we're working on. Navigation. The main way we all navigate is main menu. Is that correct to most of you? So that's what it looks like today. In the new world, and again, I'm just kind of taking these snippets out to show you, but over on this far right, we've kind of highlighted it. It looks like a little navigator symbol. Well, whether you would have thought that or not, but it's a navigator. We click it, it opens a nav bar, it expands it, and it has navigator. That is the same content as you would see under main menu. So let me show that in more detail. And I'm just giving one example. Whether you use finance or not, you can relate to the different areas. Notice in this case, I click on main menu, you see your folders that you have access to. Your systems are right up at the top. Whether you have finance, HR payroll, or student admin, those are always up at the very top, those menus. So in this case, I click on that. Notice the little folder to the left. You can tell that that's housing other links. So I go main menu, I go UNC campus, and then in that, I see other folders. There's two at the top, but the others are just direct pages. So I click on campus vendor and it'll open the campus vendor page. In the new world, we have navigated through. I'm showing, we're highlighting in this case, the breadcrumbs up at the top. Went finance menu, UNC campus. Notice on the first two at this, campus journals and source create, both of those on the left side, you see them as folders. On the right, you see an arrow pointed to the right. That lets you know there's more to click. So if you click that, that's a folder and it'll expand and give you more pages to go to. Underneath that, the next three, just like what you've got on the left, it is a single click. So those are the actual pages. So that's how navigation looks in the old versus the new. Favorites. Do you all use favorites? Yes, all the time. So favorites now and in the future. Here we've got this is what it looks like today. It's over on the left with favorites. A few changes here. We will have and I'll just show, this is, I click favorites and it expands, and I see favorites down at the bottom in this case. So how is it going to look in the future? We saw a little peek of it a moment ago when I went to Navigator. It's a gold star, We didn't invent that. The vendor did that. So favorites is a gold star. You click on the nav bar and you click on my favorites. It expands the favorites to the right. A few differences between these. Not only the location is different in your navigation to get to favorites, the name is different. On the left, it's just called favorites. On the right, my favorites. Easy to transition, but it is slightly different. And one thing to note, we did this for faculty, and we will do this in the future when all of us move over to a different look and feel. For faculty, when the faculty members transitioned to the faculty portal, we converted all of their favorites from the old to the new. And we would do that for everyone else. So you will not lose your favorites. My team reminded me, make sure and say that in this presentation. So thank you, guys. So functionality within favorites. How do I add favorites? Slightly different. This is kind of currently over up to the upper right-hand corner, you've got add to favorites. You click that, this is what the box looks like. You are able to add a name, you can call it whatever you want to, and you can currently do a folder. So you can put it in a folder if you'd like to organize it. In the new world, and there's different names for it, but the vendor calls it hamburger also, because it kind of looks like, 3 little stacks, a burger inside of 2 buns. So, well, the 3 links up, the 3 lines up at the top, sorry. Yeah, it's a little stretch there. So you click that, and you've got add to favorites at the very top. So you click add to favorites, and it opens up, and there you've got you can change the description, add the description to whatever you want. The differences, not only the location, also what it's called. My links over on the left-hand side, when you go into the page, it's called add to my links. In the new, it's add to favorites. The other, previously you could have folders. Folders will go away in the future. So go ahead and say it. Oh, yeah, folders will go away, but hold on to that thought. And here it just lets you know as soon as you do say okay, that your favorite's been saved. So how do you edit favorites? When I edit the favorites in the current world, you've got down toward the bottom, the second item, edit to my links. Again, they're still calling it my links, whereas we're calling it favorites. You click that, it opens up what all of those are, and you select edit or delete, but you can edit that directly. And that's what the page looks like. In the new world, you can edit favorites. You click on my favorites, you click edit favorites. It gives you the full list, but you don't have to go somewhere else. Right there, you can make changes to each one of those, and something new, you can change the sequence of those. So it's not exactly, it doesn't do the exact as a folder, but it does give you control over what order you do them in. And also, if it would help, knowing that you can put whatever you want to for a name, you may be able to do something with a prefix in front of it to kind of visually group them. Suggestion, it might be a stretch, but it is something that is, since with that change. But at least here, it's one quick, if you're editing several of your favorites, having to go back each time and come back through to do it, this way you can do it right there one time and edit all of them at the same time. Change your sequence one right after another, and then when you click save, it will save those. Some good, some not so good, but they've given a lot of workarounds, ways to accomplish these. Recently used. Click on favorites, and up at the top there, it shows the recently used. That's separated in the new world or the future world, where we will have This is showing, I'm clicking on the nav bar again. Down at the very bottom of that, you'll see a little icon that says recent places. And those links would show up there. So the difference is, yes, instead of recently used, now it's recent places. The location's a little bit different, the navigation, but those are still exist. So that is that still works the same. One of the things I want to note, and I'm not necessarily going to point it out, yes, I thought about it here because of what's been done, but we're showing a lot of what is, when I'm referring to in the future, some of these are delivered by the vendor. Some of these things are, and I'll give kudos to my team because there are things the vendor did not do. And my team, we made customizations and they made it happen. So we're hearing feedback, and if there's a way of accomplishing it, we're trying to before it has any negative impacts across. Breadcrumbs. Do you use breadcrumbs? And we love breadcrumbs. Well, the vendor did away with breadcrumbs. But my team figured out how to bring breadcrumbs back. So, yes, drum roll, right? So this shows the navigation currently. If you, we navigated in the example, previous one, to campus vendor, it shows the breadcrumbs across. One of the things, how many of you sometimes go to such deep links that you notice those breadcrumbs kind of merge together and it loses that middle part? So you really can't tell where all it went. It tells you the beginning and the end, but not the middle. There's the future's a little better in that case. What we're doing, what this will do, it actually wraps. So if it needs 2 lines to show you those breadcrumbs, it's going to show those 2 lines. The difference is here, we've got the finance menu, UNC campus. What it doesn't do is show you that next folder, but notice we've highlighted it here. You see that right below it, and it shows the content underneath that. So you can see that it went finance menu, UNC campus, and it's got UNC campus, and underneath it, the campus vendor. But it doesn't show campus vendor up at the top. It just shows it at the bottom. So it tells you how you got there, not necessarily what that was at the top. That's actually a benefit. One of the things that we have found, and my team reminded me of this as we were pulling this together, we have had folks that have had issues that gets errors saying request, and it's, as usual, it's a big ugly error. So it's not something that, you know, the request URL is too long. Well, it may say that, but then a lot of text after it that looks really bad and scary. So the errors are not always just clean little nice little messages. And so some people get this, and there's a couple of ways that we have been able to identify what caused it. One of which, and yes, the error message is the requested URL's length exceeds the capacity limit for the server, which is even scarier. So when you see that, it's like, what? What did I do? Or what is the system doing to me? So the root cause, it keeps if someone keeps using items under recently used, the same one, that just expands. So if you're needing to go to the same page, go down and just do a new search rather than go up and click the breadcrumbs or click recent used. And I say breadcrumbs because that's one of the next ones. But so recently used, if you need to go to something prior, but if you're going to one that you're already in, don't necessarily use breadcrumbs to get to it. Or if you do, for breadcrumbs, don't click the last item, the page you're on, click the link before that. So the folder, not the actual link itself. Does that make sense? That has been, we've been able to repeat this, and when people are getting those types of errors, we can actually see in the logs. It's amazing what behind the scenes sometimes we can delve into and see. We can actually see the events and see what causes this. And so we've been able to trace both of these types of behavior back to that error. So it actually, in the new world, not having that final link, in this case, Query Manager, available to you will help, because you won't have that to click on. So there's not the likelihood that that error would occur. Work centers. How many of you use work centers? Have you ever had something that you felt so passionate about that you think, oh, this is going to help people? Well, I think this is one of those. So I'm going to show you a little bit about work centers. How many of you have seen work centers? Okay. Well, hopefully in a week from now, those hands will go up much higher. You can think back in your office in a week from now, and hopefully it'll be, oh, Sharon, that was a good idea. If not, I'll give you my email and give me feedback either way. So work centers. Work centers are in production today. HR, finance, campus solutions all have work centers. So regardless of what system you work in administratively, there are work centers for your area. I'm picking just on campus solutions here. So I've opened, and this is just illustration only. So I've opened up the work center, expanded it. And if you're wondering, well, where are the work centers? When you log into the portal over on the left-hand side in the folders, open up student administration. One of the first links on there is a work center. Finance, one of the first links are a work center. Same for HR. When you click and you say, well, why would that help me do my job? Because that's what it's all about, right? You're not going to change just because. If you've got multiple options of doing something, you want to know a benefit. So the benefit of this, and oh, I'm sorry, I've got illustrations here. I'm just showing quickly. Student admin, here's finance work center, here's HR's work center, and there's a fourth. There's a manager work center. So there are actually 4 work centers that we have today in production. So each one of those, and now we'll kind of deep dive more into it. So finance. This shows the expanded work center. This is as soon as you log in. Notice over on the right-hand side, it simply says Finance Work Center. I click any link. In this case, I clicked Campus Vendor. And if you notice, Campus Vendor is the first link under the ePro PO section. So in that second section, that very first link, I clicked that, it opens it over to the right. And it gives me that search. I could go in, do my search, look up what I need to, and it's going to open that window in that right-hand side. What if I need to do something else? So if I need to review vendors, I click the next link. It immediately opens that up over on the right-hand side. I don't have to navigate anywhere else. I'm in the work center, and I can click on any of these links that are on the left, and it's going to open it up to the right. I don't have to go to favorites. I don't have to go to main menu. I don't have to go anywhere else. I can just click those links. I've clicked another one. It just pops it up over to the right. So not having to navigate and eliminate that, that's why I'm passionate about this as possibly being a time savings. It may not be a huge savings for someone that's in the system once a week, once every couple of weeks. It might be to the point of they've got everything. If there's something they need to do, like for the manager work center, all the manager stuff is right there together. So the savings there is they don't have to look for it or figure out how do I get to it. It's all right there. But for those of you that are in the system all day, every day, I think this would be a huge savings to be able to use the work centers. So if you haven't already, take a look.
Now that I know what work centers are, I can say that I use them. I've never called them work centers.
Yep.
But there's at least one application, maybe more than one, that when you go through the work center to get to it, you get different views than you do when you go to the main menu. And one of them, I think, has to do with vouchers. You don't see vouchers in the same way when you go to the work center as when you go to the main menu. You don't always get the same ability to see the attachments and like that. So at least that's my experience. I don't know if that
Has others had similar behavior? At the end, if you've got other pages, see me at the end and let's write down your name and contact information, because I'd like to find out more about that. But what it does, it should take you to the exact same page, and it should function the exact same way over on that right. And so if it doesn't, or we've got examples of things, let us know that. So you may have looked at that and said, well, that's nice, but some of the pages, Sharon, that I do are very complex and take full real estate of the page. I don't need to have that. I don't have real estate to have that full list to the left. You can collapse it. You can control that yourself. Up on the work center, up at the top, you see in this case, the arrows are pointing to the left. So click to hide the finance work center. So I click that and it goes away. But notice at the top left of that page, it has the little box and it has the arrows pointing to the right, letting me know I can click that and expand and go back to the work center. So it would look the exact same way. So I can either have full page for my work center, collapsing the other links, or I can click it and make them appear. So how can you help? And you guys didn't even flinch. Okay, forget that. It's not about how you can help. How can we help you? So I don't know if any of you thought about it as I was mentioning work centers, or if you'd noticed as you were using them. Okay, Sharon, that's great. But the reason I have favorites is because so much of what I do is not in the work center. So if it's not there, how's that going to help me? Well, that's where we need your feedback. We need your feedback to help make sure that we have provided what you need to simplify, not just in the future. This session is about the new look and feel and in the future, but we wanted to make sure work centers is there because, as you saw, navigation changes, all these other things change. They're not necessarily all bad, but they're different. And if there's another way of simplifying, and honestly, even from today's main menu and going down multiple levels, and some of these are 4 and 5 levels down, can't be the ideal solution for any of us on a day-to-day basis. So if we can add more links, and I'm not talking about necessarily the link that most of you may use one time a year, but if there's something that you do frequently, we want feedback and we want to know what would help. So as part of this, go back, talk in your division, talk in your department, get feedback up and have them, whether it's HR, finance, or campus solutions, let Connect Carolina know what type of links would help in work centers. And if you don't use them or haven't used them, go back, open it up and see, okay, and don't look at it and say, no, everything's not there. I'm not going to look at that anymore. We really want to make it better. So look at it and give us that feedback and let us turn this around and make that something that will work for you. Because if it works for you, odds are you're not the only person that accesses some of those. And ideally, we've got some of the groups that are grouping things based on, every day, all day, these people do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those 5 pages, they're back and forth on. If we can have those grouped together in a work center, think about how much quicker that would allow you to do and more efficient to do your job. So just like I did, crossed out how can you help. Forget that. How can we help you? But we need your feedback. So filter that through your department and your division and let us know. One thing before, and we're wrapping up, but I wanted to see how many of you had heard that a new look and feel was coming. Well, it absolutely is. And soon, and I don't know how soon, we don't have a date. There had been discussions of possibly coupling our new look and feel with the Finance Go Live that was occurring in December. that has been decided to decouple those. So we're not rolling out a change in the look and feel at that time. So when you log into Connect Carolina in December and January, it's going to look much like basically what it does today. We're not making huge changes at that time. What we are doing is collecting feedback, and we will be designing what is needed later. And so we will be rolling something out. But we wanted to make sure that you saw kind of a touch of what those changes will look like, you know, those basic things like navigation, like breadcrumbs, like some of those, and kind of get that comfort that the basics are there. There are areas, like I say, like work centers. Some are, you know, we have 4. Some are probably closer to complete than others. And I'm not going to mention any names, but it doesn't matter. It really boils down to whether that's allowing what you need, and if not, give us feedback so we can expand them. Now, we didn't have much feedback, much questions, but I'm opening it up. So any questions? Yes.
I like a lot of the changes, but I'm wondering if it's also when our students log in, how is it going to look different for our students?
Eventually, everything's going to change. We have been making great strides. I mean, for those of you that, how many of you have used HR and finance in Connect Carolina for over 4 years now? Yeah, 1st of October was 4 years. Isn't that shocking? So that hasn't changed. We have been upgrading behind the scenes, upgrading technically as well as functionality. And we're having to put in customization to keep it looking much like it is. We've got to get away from that and utilize what the vendor is offering with the tweaks that we notice, and then we find out that, oh, this is not good. They did away with this. If we can add it back, we're going to. So the students eventually will also look different. But the students also today have a mobile app. So through Carolina Go, they can download that, and they also have a mobile app. That's not 100% everything they would do, but they have other options for look and feel on devices that most of us don't have. Other questions? Yes.
You keep metrics on like what are the most used breadcrumbs per se, or what's the number one functionality of each area, finance, HR?
We don't do it from a breadcrumb standpoint. The question was, do we keep metrics on breadcrumbs? But what we do is we do look at what the most frequently used pages are. We do look at those.
What are
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. Wow.
So the titles have changed, but when we get to like campus vouchers, does that still look the same? Like the end,
Yes.
the end is the same?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Other questions? There were comments a few minutes ago. A few things. Vouchers was the example that it looks different if you go through work centers versus navigate in other ways. If you have any other feedback, and let me just couple with this. My name at the beginning of the slide, Sharon, it's odd. I have 2 R's, Sharron. I've got, you don't even have to worry about my last name, Boquin, trying to spell that. But if you have any feedback specific that I can help with, or especially that, let me know. You know, I've asked for, if you have suggestions of things to expand on work centers, to take that up through your department, your division, and kind of get those to Connect Carolina. But if you just want to, if you say, no, I don't like that, and this is why, I'm fine. Send me an email. I would like to hear your feedback, whether it's good or bad. So there's always room for improvement, and we want your feedback. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.